Good day, viewers. Welcome to Manual Statistics Arena. Today's session is going to be looking at calculator tips of measures of central tendency. So we are going to be looking at measures of central tendency. Okay, so we are going to learn how to use the calculator to solve some of the measures of central tendency. Specifically, we are going to be looking at the mean, the standard deviation, and variance. Okay, so let's take our calculators and quickly look at some of the functions that we have on the calculator. So when you take your calculator, the first thing you need to identify or look out for your calculator is the colors in which the tests are written. So we have tests in red and then we have tests in yellow or orange based on the calculator you are using. So over here, any test on the calculator written in red, we use the alpha to retrieve such tests. And then any test on the calculator written in yellow, we use the shift, which is to the left side of the calculator. So you see your shift there, and then the alpha is also right beside the shift. Now we have the mode on the calculator, and then that's what we are going to be using to look at the function that will give us the measures of central tendency. So to begin with, let's press the mode. Now, upon pressing mode, there are several options that comes up. But we are going to be looking at the third option, which is start. The third option, start. So we began by pressing mode. Then we went on to look at option 3, which is start. Now when we go to start, after pressing your third option, that is option 3, the next is to press option 1, and it's one var, meaning one variable. So option 1 is one var. So when you press that option, you see this. This is what comes up. We are going to be selecting that. So after selecting that, a table pops up, a column with X on top. So we have a column and then we have X on top. Anytime you want to enter data on the calculator, if it's a raw data or even if it's not a raw data, anytime you want to make an entry, this is what we use. So as you have the column there, all you need to do is to type in your figures, and then automatically it gets filled within the column. Now we are going to be looking at that. So let's go back and then look at the whole process again. So we began by pressing mode, and then went to the third option, which is start. And then we chose another option 1, which is the one var. And then it gives us something like this. That is a column with X on top. That's what we are going to be used to. That's what we are going to be using for our entry. So to make an entry, we are going to use raw data first. So assuming we have this set of raw data, so 40, 12, 17, 16, 16, 15, 11, 13, and 15 again. So this is the raw data that we have. And we want to use this data to calculate or solve for our mean and then our standard deviation. And then solve for the variance as well. So to enter this on the calculator, all you need to do is take each of the digits one by one. So you enter the digits and you press equal to. So the first one is 14. So when you press 14, you press equal to, and the 14 has been entered. Then we go to the next value, which is 12. So we take our 12, we press equal to, and we go to the next, which is 17. Take your 17, press equal to. The next 16, repeat the same process. Another 16, press equal to again. 15, equal to. 11, 13, and then finally 15. So in entering the data, from what we just did, what you realize is that for each value that you want to enter, you press equal to after entering that particular value or after typing the value. So if you take the first one, 14, you press your equal to, you take the value, press equal to, then it appears there. You take the second one, press equal to, it appears there. You take the third one, press equal to, it appears there. So you have to type the number before pressing the equal to. You don't have to just press equal to for the value to be filled in. So just like we are doing, you take your 16, you press 16, 1, 6, then equal to, then the data will be entered. So that's how we enter data on our calculator. If you have a raw data, that's how we go about it. Now, after entering our data, all we have to do is press AC. So AC. So we did a data entry, and now we are pressing AC. So AC clears everything on your screen. So don't panic. If you see that everything you entered has left the screen, it's still within, it's still on the calculator. And then we are going to look at how we can retrieve that start mode and then locate the functions that we are interested in. So to retrieve the start mode, what we need to do is to press Shift and then 1. Now we are pressing Shift and 1 because on top of 1, you realize that start is written there on top of 1. We have start on top of 1. And then earlier we mentioned that to enter any value on the calculator in yellow, we use the Shift. And since this particular start, which is written on top of 1, is in yellow, we are going to be using the Shift and then the 1 to retrieve that start mode. So Shift and 1. So if you press Shift and 1, it gives us 6 options. We have 6 options. So the first option, which is the type, takes us to the beginning where we have to select the one var after entering the start mode. That's the first option. The first option takes us to the beginning. So let's say you are going to enter another data, but this time around we are not making a calculation on measures of central tendency. You could be calculating something on correlation or regression, where you need to use other options. So if you come here, that's where you are going to choose any other option that you want to use. So that's what the type does. So that's the first option. Now, the second option is data. The second option is data. Second option, data. Data. So if you press 2, which is the second option, it will take you to your data. That is the entry that you make. It will take you there. So if there is the need for you to make any correction, let's say you are entering your data and then you made a mistake with any of the values and you need to correct that mistake. When you press your Shift and then 1, you choose the second option, data, and then it takes you to the data. So over there you can make any changes you want to make. Right after that, just press your AC and it's saved on your calculator. Now the third option is sum. So if we take the third option, which is sum, there are two other options over there. The first of which is summation x squared and then summation x. Now in solving for the standard deviation, if you are using the formula that requires now in solving for standard deviation, when you are doing your computations, you realize that at a point you'll be calculating for at a point you have a column for fx and then you have a column for fx squared, and at the end of this column you have your summation fx, and then at the end of this column you have your summation fx squared. So if you enter your data on the calculator and then you are working for the standard deviation by yourself, not relying on the calculator, and then you get to this point, once you have entered the data on your calculator, you are also solving it alongside to see if the answers are the same. The answer you get is the same as what you are getting on the calculator. The calculator automatically provides this value for you. The calculator will not give you the individual values over here or here, but it will give you the summation of the two. So the third option, which is sum, that is what it does. So the first one, which is the summation x squared, is in actual fact summation fx squared. So in the calculator it is summation x squared, but in solving it manually it is summation fx squared. Then there is summation x. Summation x on the calculator is summation fx when you are solving manually by yourself. So that's what the sum does. So now we've looked at the type, we've looked at data, we've looked at sum. Let's check out the next option. So the next option there is var. That is option 4, VAR, var. So we have our VAR, and then if you press the 4, that is the VAR, you get 4 options. So we have option 1, N. The N over there is the sample size, or the size of the data, the number of entry that you made when you input, upon inputting your data in on the calculator. The N gives you the total number of entries. And then there is the X bar, which is actually your mean. The X bar is your mean. Then we have the third one. So the third option there is population standard deviation. Population standard deviation. And the fourth option is our sample standard deviation. Sample standard deviation. For the purpose of our discussion today, we are going to end here. So we are looking at just the first four options. For today, we are just looking at the first 4 options. So our focus today is on the fourth option, that is the VAR. So now, we mentioned that we are going to be solving for the mean, the standard deviation, and then we'll look at the variance as well. So now that we know what each function is used for, or what each option represents on the calculator, we are going to proceed with our calculation based on the data that we used earlier. So shift, we go to shift and then 1. Then we go to 4, that is our VAR. And now we want to solve for the mean. So the mean is our X bar, which is the second option, option 2. So we are going to select 2. So you can see the X bar over there, option 2. So we are going to select 2. Then upon selecting 2, you press equal to get the value of the mean. So equal to, and that gives us 14.33. So our X bar is 14.33, and that's the value of our mean. Now we want to find the standard deviation, so we have to press AC once more and then press shift and then 1 to go back to retrieving the start mode. Then we select option 4, and now we are looking at the population standard deviation. So we take the third option and then we press equal to, and that gives us 1.88. So let's round it to 2 decimal places, so 1.89. So we have population standard deviation to be 1.89. And now we are going to look at the next, which is the sample standard deviation. So we repeat the process again. So shift 1, then we go to 4. Then this time around we select 4. That is the one with this sign over there, or this alphabet. So the S and the X is our sample standard deviation. So you select option 4, press equal to, and that gives us 2. So 2. Our sample standard deviation is 2. Population standard deviation 1.89, and then our mean is 14.33. So we have been able to use the calculator to solve for the mean and standard deviation with the raw data that we were provided in the beginning. Now let's look at variance. Already we know that variance, to get the variance, we get it by simply squaring our standard deviation. So on the calculator there is no option for variance, but anytime you need to solve for the variance, you need to solve for a standard deviation first, and then you use that value to solve for a variance. So if you want to find the population variance in this case, it will be 1.89, which is the population standard deviation, all squared. So 1.89 squared gives us 3.5721. 3.5721. So yes, this is the value of our population variance. So if you want to find the sample variance, it's the same thing. All you need to do is take the square of the sample standard deviation, that is 2 squared, and that gives us 4. So that's how we go about solving for the measures of central tendency that we mentioned on the calculator using raw data or on grouped data. So it's either raw or on grouped. Now let's quickly look at the grouped. So for the group, we are going to be using a different set of data. So we have Okay, so this is what we are going to be using for our group data. So the first question that will come to mind regarding this is, how are you going to enter your data? Because when we go to the calculator, when we go to the start mode, then select one var, all that we get is one column with X on top. But over here, the data is from somewhere. It has a beginning and it has an end, so a range has been provided. So from 10 to 14, how do we go about that on the calculator? So with regards to the group, there is no way you can enter data on the calculator in this form when you are working on a group data. So first of all, anytime you have a group data for which you want to use the calculator to solve for the measures of central tendency, you need to first find your midpoint. You need to first find your midpoint before you begin any calculation. So let's quickly find the midpoint. So our midpoint is given as x. So we have 10 plus 40 divided by 2. That gives us, so 10 plus 40, that's 24. Divided by 2. We have the first value, that's 12. Then we have 15 plus 19, that gives us 34. 34 divided by 2. So we have 17. Then 20 plus 24, that is 44. 44 divided by 2, we have 22. Then 25 plus 29, that gives us 54. 54 divided by 2, we have 27. Then finally, 30 plus 34 giving us 64. 64 divided by 2, we have 32. So these are our midpoints for this group data. So we are, instead of using this, we are going to be using the midpoint and the frequency for our group data. So to begin calculation for any group data, first of all, we press our shift and then we press mode. Then you press the arrow that leads down. So this arrow, and then we select 4. 4, that is start. Then 1, that is frequency. So 1 to 10 frequency on. So 1. So what we did was to press shift followed by mode. Then we used the arrow that was pointing down. So the down arrow, and then we selected 4, which was start. Then from there we selected 1, which was on. So we did this to turn a frequency on. Now the essence of doing that is to create another column for frequency, unlike the first one that we did. So let's quickly repeat the process using the first method, and let's see if the columns will now be 2, including a frequency. So we are going to press mode, then we press 3, that is start. Then we press 1, that is 1 var. And over here you see that we now have 2 columns. So we have a first column with a X at the top and then a second column for frequency. Yes. So we are going to be entering our midpoint for the X. And then we enter the frequency in the other column. So we begin with 12. So you press your 12, then equal to 17, and you press your equal to 22, you press the equal to 27, you press the equal to, and finally 32, then you press your equal to. Now you take your arrow to the first data that you enter, that is the 12, and then you shift it to the other column and you start entering the frequency. So we begin with 13 and you press your equal to, 15, press your equal to, 12, equal to, 14, equal to, and finally 18, and you press your equal to. So we are done entering data. So what we do next is to press the AC. Now we are going to find our mean and then standard deviation, and of course our variance. So let's quickly look at what to do next. So we press shift, then we press 1, then we press the fourth, we choose the fourth option, that is VAR. Then option 2, X bar, and that gives us 22.625. So our X bar is 22.625. So for this grouped data, this is the mean, and we did this using the calculator. Now let's solve for the standard deviation. So shift and 1, then we choose option 4. Then we take our 3, that is population standard deviation, and then we have 7.26, 2 decimal places. So this one becomes 22.63, and then our population standard deviation becomes 7.26. So we've been able to use the calculator to solve for the mean and standard deviation for ungrouped data and then grouped data. So just as we did for the ungrouped data, to find the variance of this particular data, all that we need to do is to square our standard deviation, and that gives us the variance. So let's quickly do that. So we have our 7.26 to be our standard deviation. So 7.26 all squared gives us 52.7076. So this is for the population. So if you are doing it for the sample, then we'll choose the sample standard deviation, and whatever value we get for the sample standard deviation, we square that one as well to give us the variance. So this is what we have done so far. Now let's quickly look at something we mentioned earlier. So let's press shift 1. Okay, so we press shift 1, and then we go to option 3 instead of 4, that is sum. You realize that the summation f, the summation x squared, and then the summation x are there. So if you are doing a manual entry, if you are solving it by yourself and you do not want to rely on the calculator, then all you need to do is to just input your data and then do your own workings elsewhere. Now when you are done, to get the summation of the fx column, then the fx squared column, all you need to do is choose any of them under sum. So shift 1, you go to 3 sum. There are 2 options. The first one, summation fx squared, and then the second one, summation fx. So if you choose any of them, it will give you the value for those 2 variables, and then you are good to go. So this is what we've looked at today. That is calculator tips, specifically solving for measures of central tendency. So we've been able to solve for the mean, standard deviation, and then variance for grouped and ungrouped data. And this brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you all for joining.